Farmington police say a man is in critical condition after falling from a ride at Lagoon theme park.
A viewer sent us video of the moments just before the man fell about 50 feet to the ground. It's disturbing to watch for some. Fox 13's John Franke has the full story.
On August the 14th, 2021, a man boarded the Skyride at Lagoon Amusement Park in Farmington, Utah. The Skyride, operational since 1974 without prior incident, is a chairlift-style attraction that transports guests between the north and south ends of the park, offering elevated views of the surroundings. Barely any information was ever released about the man, but we do know that he was 32 years old and arrived at the park alone that day. He boarded the Skyride like countless others had before him, settling into his seat as the gondola began its slow ascent. As the ride moved forward, Lucy Grace, another park visitor, was watching the gondolas pass when she noticed him. At first, she thought he was just adjusting his seat and said, "I'm thinking this is a professional gymnast or a stunt," but what unfolded was much more sinister. The man had hoisted himself over the safety bar, his hands gripping the safety barrier of the chair as his body dangled in the air. Parents shielded their children's eyes, whilst others pulled out their phones, unsure of what they were witnessing. For nearly a minute, the man clung to the ride, swaying back and forth as the gondola continued along the cable. No one knew why he was doing it, but shockingly, he didn't seem distressed at all. A fellow gondola rider recorded the man as he went past, and you can see in the video footage that he does not look panicked or distressed. Literally a second after the video stops, the man suddenly dropped. He plunged 50 feet to the ground, landing near a walkway below. The moment was horrifying. Within minutes, emergency responders arrived. The man was still alive, but critically injured. Medics quickly airlifted him to the University of Utah Hospital, where doctors fought to save his life. For nearly 2 days, his condition remained critical. Then, on August 16, 2021, he succumbed to his injuries. An investigation was launched, and the Skyride was shut down for inspection, but officials found no mechanical failures and the ride had been functioning properly. Witnesses confirmed that the man had climbed over the safety restraint himself, and some even claimed he was drunk. One commenter from Reddit said, "I was with a group of friends and he landed 20 feet away from where we were. I remember hearing branches breaking, then seeing him fall. I saw a lot of blood gush out of his leg. I'm absolutely traumatized by this." Authorities ruled out foul play, but they never determined whether the fall was accidental or intentional, or if they did, they never released it to the public. From viewing the video, the general consensus is that he did this on purpose. May he rest in peace. On February the 3rd, 2013, a charter bus carrying a group of tourists from Tijuana, Mexico, embarked on what was supposed to be a leisurely day trip to the snowy slopes of Big Bear Lake, California. Passengers, family, friends and couples were looking forward to a scenic getaway, unaware that their journey would end in one of California's deadliest bus crashes ever. The bus, operated by Scapadus Magicus LLC, had a history of safety violations, but that information was not known to the passengers who trusted the vehicle and its driver. As the sun set, the tour group began its return trip, winding down the steep and treacherous mountain roads of San Bernardino County. What followed was a horrifying sequence of events that would leave 8 people dead, dozens injured, and lead to a massive investigation into negligence and accountability. As the bus descended State Route 38 near Yucaipa, the driver, Norberto Banuelos, realised something was terribly wrong. The brakes were failing. Witnesses record seeing the vehicle picking up speed, swerving dangerously as the driver struggled to maintain control. The bus rear-ended a sedan, sending it spinning out of control. But the momentum didn't stop. The massive vehicle then collided head-on with a pickup truck towing a trailer. The force of the impact flipped the bus onto its side, causing metal, glass, and luggage to scatter across the highway. Passengers were thrown from their seats, with some ejected onto the road. Emergency responders arrived to find a nightmarish scene. Bodies trapped inside the wreckage, survivors moaning in pain, and debris littering the highway. 7 people were pronounced dead at the scene, whilst an 8th victim succumbed to injuries later. 7 of these died due to smoke inhalation. At least 38 others suffered various injuries, some life-threatening. In the days that followed, federal investigators launched a probe into the crash, focusing on the Scapadus Magicus company, and their findings were damning. The company had a long record of safety violations, including multiple warnings about faulty brakes and poor maintenance. Within days of the accident, federal regulators shut down the company entirely, citing a pattern of negligence. Survivors and families of the victims filed lawsuits against the bus company, the tour operator, and other involved parties, accusing them of putting profits over safety. Meanwhile, investigators continued to piece together the final moments before the crash, analysing skid marks, vehicle conditions, and witness testimony. Then, in 2015, 2 years after the tragedy, an unexpected development emerged. Authorities charged the bus driver, Norberto Benuelos, with multiple counts of manslaughter. Prosecutors alleged that Norberto had knowingly operated a defective vehicle, contributing to the fatal accident. His arrest reignited public outrage, as many questioned whether the true blame lay with him alone, or with the company that had repeatedly ignored safety warnings. For those who survived, the memories of that horrific night would never fade. The 8 victims who lost their lives were mourned deeply by their families and communities. The group's ages ranged from young adults to older individuals, and they were described as loving, vibrant people, with dreams and plans cut short by the crash. If you want to learn more about the victims, I will link a tribute page below. In January of 2018, the body of Ronald Alexander, a 74-year-old man from Ayrshire, Scotland, was discovered in a remote area near his place of work and would later die in hospital as a result. His unexpected death left many in shock, and his family demanded answers. Ronnie was a beloved family man who landed himself as a job as a security guard at the Afton wind farm construction site. The Afton wind farm is situated near Newcombe Knock. Winters around Newcombe Knock, especially near Afton wind farm, can be harsh, with temperatures often hovering around freezing and sometimes dropping well below. On the 21st of January 2018, a day marked by heavy snowfall, Ronnie was performing his security duties at the Afton wind farm. The severe weather conditions led to significant snow accumulation, creating a treacherous environment. When Ronnie failed to return home after his shift, concern grew among his family, who contacted authorities. Repeated phone calls went unanswered, and signal reception at the wind farm was notoriously unreliable. A search was initiated, which involved local police and mountain rescue teams. Tragically, 6 hours into the search, they found Ronnie, 1 mile away from the safety of his work cabin. Miraculously, he was alive, but he was unresponsive. He was airlifted to hospital, where a few hours later he sadly passed away. This was a massive shock to the community and his family, but questions remained. Why was he so far from his cabin? The police launched an investigation to figure out what happened in the moments leading up to Ronnie's death. They quickly pieced together what had happened. 2 men were on site that night, Ronnie and his colleague. Ronnie was in a worker's cabin, and his co-worker was a kilometre away at the main compound. Snow was falling heavy, and the site depended on a generator that failed, leaving Ronnie and his co-worker in the dark with no power or heat. Workers arrived in the morning, hoping to clear the snow, but the storm was relentless. By 11 AM, they were told their shift was cancelled and they gave up. Before leaving, they warned Ronnie's colleague if they didn't follow them, the road would be blocked. He decided that he would follow them, but first he had to reach the worker's cabin to pick Ronnie up, but unfortunately on his way the car got stuck. He tried to walk there, but the snow was too deep, so he desperately climbed a hill to get some signal. He reached his supervisor, and his supervisor told him to get Ronnie and leave the site, but he wasn't able to. The workers who arrived in the morning were still there, and they decided to walk to the gatehouse with their colleague and get Ronnie. It took them hours in the deep snow, and when they finally got there, Ronnie was nowhere to be found. The 3 men then returned to their car and waited for help to arrive. Meanwhile, at home, his family were concerned that Ronnie had not returned home and also contacted emergency services. A search was initiated and mountain rescue reached the workers' cabin at around midnight. They found Ronnie a mile away from the site, unconscious, but still alive. He was airlifted to hospital, but sadly he died a few hours later. Investigators believe that he initially waited for help, but figured no one was coming, so tried to brave the weather and get down the hill himself. With no light, Ronnie got lost and eventually succumbed to hypothermia. I can't even begin to imagine how terrifying those last few moments would have been. As the investigation unfolded, the full extent of negligence became apparent. Ronnie's employer, Corporate Services Management, and Northstone Limited, the parent company of Farron's Construction, had failed in their duty to protect their workers. The site had no reliable backup generator for heating or electricity. Security guards had no guaranteed way of calling for help due to poor mobile signal, and despite the Met Office issuing a yellow weather warning for heavy snow, no extra precautions were taken to ensure workers' safety. Had a working generator been in place, had an emergency communication system existed, had there been better planning for severe weather, Ronnie most likely would have survived that night. After years of waiting for accountability, Ronnie's family saw both companies admit to breaching health and safety regulations at Ayr Sheriff Court, resulting in Northstone Limited being fined £768,000 and Corporate Services Management receiving a fine of £100,000 and £800, with the total penalties nearing £900,000, one of the largest fines of its kind in Scotland. For Ronnie's family, the fines and convictions brought some closure, but no punishment could bring him back. His family released a statement saying, "We had to wait years just to get the conviction, but now that we have the sentence, we can say we have justice, but ultimately, it's bittersweet because at the end of the day, we are still without Ronnie." Since the tragedy, Northstone has stated that they took immediate action to prevent a repeat of the failure that led to Ronnie's death. As always, this is not an AI channel, I do everything myself, and if you appreciate my work, subscribe, and if you want to go the extra step to support the channel, maybe consider becoming a member. Let me know what you think about them in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.